Hey, what's going on everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Star Wars Coffee, where in today's episode, we're going to be taking a look at an interview that Harrison Ford gave about his unexpected appearance in The Rise of Skywalker. That's today here on Star Wars Coffee.
I have spoken.
Hello there.
To all of the returning subscribers, but if you're new to the channel and you're just finding Star Wars Coffee for the first time, be sure to always hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and turn on that notification bell. Don't forget to check out Star Wars Coffee on Twitter and Twitch, and don't forget to check out the official Star Wars Coffee merchandise. Links are in the description below.
Do it!
And now let's go to a galaxy far, far away.
This is the way.
The Rise of Skywalker is finishing up its theatrical run in most places if it hasn't finished up already, and the critics still aren't a huge fan of this film as it's just still at a 52% on Rotten Tomatoes, but it's still at an 86% score on audience. And before we get into the Harrison Ford thing, I'm going to give you the best way to take a look at the critics' ratings on Rotten Tomatoes. Don't. That's simple as that. Just don't do it. They're all morons. Alright, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a look at this Harrison Ford interview that he gave to USA Today. It says, quote, "Even Harrison Ford was shocked deceased Han Solo could return in The Rise of Skywalker," written by Brian Alexander. And I would agree that most fans were surprised when Harrison Ford popped up on screen on the Death Star wreckage. As unless you were into the leaks and into this, probably this channel actually, you probably knew that Han was going to return in the film, or at least you had suspected it, rather than not thinking about it at all, as I'm sure most general audience goers wouldn't have suspected it considering his death in The Force Awakens. So here's what Harrison Ford had to say about his return in The Rise of Skywalker, checking into this article, quote, "Han Solo's return was one of the major surprises in Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker. It's surprising because Han Solo's son, Kylo Ren, portrayed by Adam Driver, stuck his lightsaber into his dear old dad in 2015's The Force Awakens, leaving him very dead. Even Harrison Ford was shocked he could come back. When JJ asked me to do it, I said, 'Are you kidding me? I'm dead,'" Ford tells USA Today, relating his early conversations with JJ Abrams. He said, "Sorta dead. You can do this." He hadn't written anything at the time, but he said, "This is going to be great." So I said okay. If JJ asked you to do something, you'd probably do it too. He's a very persuasive guy. Ford insists that the reason he came back was that Solo's return was pivotal to Kylo Ren's growth. "It was a useful addition to the story and continuing development of Adam Driver's character," Harrison says. "And the chance to do another scene with Adam was great. We had to remind Ford that his last scene in The Force Awakens with Driver led to a pretty painful, drawn-out death scene. He begrudgingly agreed. Last time it didn't turn out so well for me," he said, "but it worked for him." And Ford weighed in on the online debate over whether Han Solo returned as a Force ghost, since the character was not only a Jedi or overly Force sensitive. Coming back as a Force ghost would have placed Han Solo in league with Yoda and Obi-Wan Kenobi. Harrison says, "A Force ghost? I don't know what a Force ghost is." Before going into a whisper as to not disturb rabid Star Wars fans, "Don't tell anyone. I'm not talking loud enough for your recorder. I have no idea what a Force ghost is, and I don't care." So, Han Solo. That's exactly how Harrison Ford is essentially Harrison Ford in every movie since Star Wars. Before Star Wars, he was Han Solo, and now he's Han Solo, aka Harrison Ford, in every movie he plays. And we all love him for it. But okay, so here's the thing. Harrison Ford is very interesting because he loves to collect his checks. No secret about that. Harrison Ford even jokes about that on late night shows. What got you to come back? The contract. He said that in a recent Indiana Jones interview. But Harrison is also, whether he gets his contract or not, he wants the contract, but he also wants it to be good because he's got to put his name on all of these things. And so I really like how Harrison Ford not only cares about the contract, but clearly when he saw what JJ was going to do with it, he went along with it. As Harrison, I'm sure there's no way he couldn't take notice of the symmetry between the scenes from The Force Awakens and The Rise of Skywalker, just essentially giving Harrison a proper exit scene, just as well as giving Kylo his proper redemption scene. Because all of this shows is that the haunting of Kylo Ren and when I say all this shows, and it's massively important to the rest of the story, is that Kylo's whole character arc is essentially revolving around this imagery of Han, and also Leia from The Last Jedi, but not as much, because that's not clearly what's haunting him as much as killing Han was. And especially Rey can see that when they talk about that and they have their force bonds early in The Rise of Skywalker. And so Kylo's whole confusion between the light and the dark, the call to the light, talking to Vader's mask, continuing to press on it as he did in The Rise of Skywalker, just highlights the fact and reinforces the imagery of this tormented character living inside the shell, and the Kylo Ren's mask really reinvigorates that idea as well. And so when he's confronted with this whole arc again of his father, and Han Solo comes back into the film, he gets that proper exit scene, and it's essentially Kylo Ren's chance at a do-over to choose the right thing, especially considering he just felt Leia's passing. So now it all culminates together into this one giant massive emotion that Kylo Ren can no longer contain inside his Kylo Ren facade, and it forces the real Ben Solo to come back out, not only wanting the power, but wanting to do the right thing. And that's where Bendemption really begins, as in that Kylo Ren scene with Han Solo. Kylo Ren isn't officially gone until he throws his lightsaber, and then he's officially Ben Solo. So right after, Harrison Ford comes in, Han has his same speech, and Ben Solo says the same things. He is finally back. And that's really excellent, considering that J.J. Abrams had to draw a connection between all three of these films in order for it to feel good and satiate well with all of these fans, in order for it to feel like it was one trilogy and not just a bunch of broken, fragmented pieces. And he did such a good job with that, especially with this scene, in drawing back to The Force Awakens, and then having Leia's passing also reinforced the imagery of The Last Jedi, when Kylo Ren saw his mom out in space before she was able to use the Force to bring herself back in. It's that whole scene on the Death Star wreckage is excellent in terms of moving the story. The imagery of it is fantastic, the symbolism of it is fantastic, the dialogue is great, and the visuals are spectacular, obviously. So this whole Harrison Ford Han Solo scene in The Rise of Skywalker is a really pivotal moment, and I think that the rest of the film kind of hinges on that fact, considering that's where Kylo's Bendemption arc comes in. And if it wasn't for that arc, the whole third act would have been completely different. So that's my thoughts on that. Let me know what you guys think about that in the comment section down below. I'll probably dive into the Han scene, the Kylo Ren arc, a bit more deeper in a separate video. If that's something you guys want, let me know in the comment section down below referencing that. But thank you guys for watching. May God bless you and the Force be with you. If you enjoyed this episode, and frankly, even if you didn't, don't forget to subscribe. And if you want to help spread the word, please give this video a thumbs up and tell your friends to subscribe. Please check out the official Star Wars Coffee merchandise, and don't forget to check out all of the content playlists on this channel, including The Rise of Skywalker, The Mandalorian, and much more.